Our next speaker is some guy named Richard Foy. There he is. Good-looking man. I had a speech prepared to introduce him, and he said to not use it, that I should let it rip. What can I say about Richard? Richard is currently at TPK. Before that, he was the chief archivist for an incredible stint. He's the only person I know who has met the 501st in honor. Let's see. He's a bicyclist. He's a fan of Star Wars and Star Trek. He likes mushrooms. And he's one of the most entertaining speakers I can think of in Wellington. So he's going to come up and he's going to riff. But he's not wearing his TPK hat today. That's an important thing to note. There will be time for questions at the end, maybe, but if there aren't, it's because he's got this timed very carefully. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, Richard Foy, everybody.
Kore he pō, kore au, hei turia ki te mataho no tū wini, no tū wana, no tū wehi, tū hikatia, tū hapainga, tū whakaputi ki te whaiau, tihei mauri ora. Thank you, Mick. I'm just going to connect my computer up so the AV folks can get this going. Well, that's a good start. It's blank. Nā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Ko Wangokwhi toku ngā tutu. Ko Richard Foy. Aho. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, Govis. Thank you, Vic, for that lovely, warm introduction. I really appreciate that. Is the sound okay if I speak from here? If I speak here, you might not see me. So, before I forget, may I take a photo of you all from here? Yes, because you never get a photo from the front. Ooh, it's very bright. That's great. Yep, that's going on my OnlyFans page. All right. So I've been a long time supporter of Govis, so it's really lovely to be here this morning to speak with you all. I was just looking back through my records. Records are important. And the last time I sort of did something formally with Govis was back in 2018 when I got to host a fireside chat with Mr. Vint Cerf, which was fantastic. But today I'm talking about, that topic of AI, artificial intelligence, which is really having its moment, isn't it? We heard quite a lot of it in the opening address by the GCDO. It's all across the media. People are talking about it at work, at home, especially like with grandparents and children. We don't know whether we're in an AI bubble or whether we're at the peak of the hype cycle, about to careen down into the trough of disillusionment. We don't know. I'm not a predictor. But what it's kind of clear to me is that AI is definitely having its McLuhan-esque moment, where it's not just the medium, it's very much the message. So I want to, lean into that topic by sharing kind of more of a personal story of my way into AI, which actually goes back a long way. I'm going to start by introducing to you or sharing with you 5 words that have been with me since I was a young lad. 5 words that have been with me throughout my whole growing up, and in fact, actually, maybe from those 5 words and everything that I've done in my life has led me to this moment, this morning, to speak to you here at Govis. God, I hope that's not the case. But my parents are already disappointed in me. What could those 5 words be? Would they be the opening words to a great soliloquy from history's greatest English playwright? Perhaps they were sage words of wisdom and instruction from an ancient Chinese civil servant come philosopher about the importance of words and names and labels. Could it be maybe these 5 words from one of New Zealand's greatest heroes? No, not those words. These words. Come, come, elucidate your thoughts. Come, come, elucidate your thoughts. These words I learned when I was in Wainyamata growing up, when I was around my early teenage years, when I first, I guess, fell in love with computers, when my passion and obsession with computers and technology took hold of me. And I was a bit of a nerd back then. Truth is, I'm still a bit of a nerd. So these words, come, come, elucidate your thoughts. 5 words that are incredibly meaningful to me, that have stayed with me throughout my entire life. I'm going to guess that none of you, well, very few of you, recognise these words, but if you know, you know. They actually come from a computer program called Eliza. Of course, I didn't interact with Eliza on a modern-day MacBook Pro with Apple Silicon. I interacted with it on an Osborne 1. If you're not familiar, it was one of the very first portable computers. My brother brought it home from work. His work, he was an accountant. They said to him, Colin, his name was Colin. It still is. Colin, accounting, because he was an accountant, accounting is going to be completely transformed by computers. So you need to learn how to use one. So he brought home an Osborne 1 and all its 11 kilograms of glory, dual diskettes, disk drives. And he brought it home on a train and a bus, because he was telling me about this the other day. And we set it up on the tabletop or the kitchen table after dinner. And it's very much not a laptop. It's very much a tabletop computer. And we went about learning how to start it up and use it. My brother Colin's not very tech savvy, so who would he ask but his young, early teenage brother to help him out, booting it up with CPM, which is kind of like a predecessor to MS-DOS, all command line interface. Beautiful. And Eliza was one of the very first programs that I found on the floppy disk library that we were given. It was developed by Joseph Weizenbaum, who was a Jewish-American computer scientist, developed in 1966. I didn't start to use it until the early 80s. Named after Eliza Doolittle from Pygmalion fame, written by, the play by George Bernard Shaw, and then made into a film, My Fair Lady, with the beautiful and amazing Audrey Hepburn. And Eliza really tried to, I guess, mimic an interaction between a psychotherapist, a Rogerian psychotherapist, and their client or patient, asking a number of sort of open-ended questions to help draw out something from that patient. So here's a little bit of a dialogue there. And as you can see, those words, come, come, elucidate your thoughts. So Eliza was really the OG chatbot back in the day. And, we might ask ourselves, as a chatbot, could it have passed the Turing test? Alan Turing, great mathematician, pretty much the father of computer science. This is a universal Turing machine, not just a computer. He was made famous by Benedict Cumberbatch in The Imitation Game. And I don't know, I'm going to assume most people know about the Turing test, but if you don't know, here's a diagram. And if you don't know, you still don't know after looking at this diagram. Now, there's only 2 pieces of AI slop in this talk, this one and in the next slide. The rest of it is pure human slop, straight from me. I got AI to generate another one, and this is equally bad, so I thought I'd better do this myself. So in the Turing test, you have a human tester by communicating with a human and a computer on the other side of a fixed screen. Human tester can't see who's behind there. And through a series of conversations and dialogue, the human tester really has to try and figure out which one was human, which one was a computer. And more importantly, has the computer been able to imitate or pretend to be a human? Now, just suppose Alan didn't like my picture either. Just suppose we swapped out a computer for Eliza back in the day. I'm pretty sure that after a minute or two, just like I was able to as a teenage boy, I would have said it would have failed the Turing test. Some cases, some people thought it passed. What if we swapped out Eliza for a ChatGPT? Might have passed, but probably actually after a while, we'd figure out that actually we weren't dealing with a human. What I think we take away from that, though, is that maybe the Turing test was kind of just not a great test of human intelligence, and we need to kind of think about what human intelligence actually is. Alan Turing, I think, came up with that test when he was asked, how would we know when we've found and met machine intelligence? And I think he sort of sidestepped that question and said, well, maybe, if it can fool us, if it can pretend to be human, or we can't tell the difference, then we'll consider it human. I think human intelligence in reality is still a highly debated topic. People don't necessarily agree what it is. Note which one I've highlighted, creativity, just for this conference. And indeed, people like René Descartes, who in the 17th century, he posited this sort of mind-body duality, our bodies in the physical world, separate substance and stuff from our minds, our consciousness, and I guess by implication, our intelligence. Mind and body connected and interfacing through a little pineal gland in the middle of our brain. We'd probably no longer have that notion of what intelligence is as something completely separate from ourselves. But maybe AI is actually returning back to that idea of putting the ghost back into the machine. So, come, elucidate your thoughts. There's another phrase that has stuck with me and stayed with me through my growing up, which is also related to artificial intelligence. This one's probably more familiar to you, I'm guessing. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. From the classic and iconic tale by Arthur C. Clarke that then was made into the film by Stanley Kubrick. And those words start out at this segment in the film where our protagonist, astronaut Dr. Dave Bowman, is in the little pod on the right. He's trying to bring back there's spoilers in this. He's trying to bring back the deceased remains of his crewmate, Frank Poole, back into the Discovery spaceship on the left. And he's asking HAL 9000, the heuristically programmed algorithmic computer 9000 series, which is the shipboard artificial intelligence that controls the operations of the ship and looks after and protects the crew. And he's asking HAL to open up the pod bay doors, to which HAL says, I'm not going to do that. So a classic case of asking a computer to do something and then being denied. And this sets up this incredible, intense confrontation and conflict between humanity and machine intelligence. It's just like Pacino versus De Niro in Heat. Pacino sitting across from De Niro on a diner table, Vincent Hanna, the career cop, versus Neil McCauley, the career crook. But this, back in 1968, Pacino versus De Niro, just having that little bit of a conversation about opening the pod bay doors. And following from that, just a sequence of conversations where there's a little bit of passive aggressiveness from HAL. I think you know what the problem is, and this mission's way too important. I don't want you to F it up. Spoiler. Bowman makes it back into the Discovery. An insurance claim will be lodged by NASA. And Dave Bowman, he's going to get all medieval on HAL and decides to wreak upon him some ultraviolence by going to his logic memory centre. So HAL's Logic Memory Centre. I want you to remember this. This is going to come back a little bit later in the talk. It's kind of important. And so Bowman starts pulling apart the logic circuits, about the logic circuits were important in terms of HAL's reasoning, his consciousness, his intelligence, as well as his memory circuits, and HAL goes a bit nutty. So I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that. And so I hope you see this is like the convergence for me of two stories. Eliza, my first interaction with something that could have been deemed as being artificially intelligent, and artificial intelligence from film. And we heard today, we heard it already, I was actually listening for the words, that AI will transform everything. Now, actually, if we're up for a bit of audience participation, because I have repeated this slide a few times, every time you see this, AI will transform, say, I want you to call out everything. Okay, you can do that? Give it a go. But really, yeah, I think it already has, because it's made my search better or worse. It means I don't get junk mail anymore. I don't get defrauded with my credit cards. I'm getting great recommendations of what rubbish to watch. It's helping me drive safer. In fact, my daughter Lucy has achieved autonomous full self-driving, because I drive her everywhere. It helps me get from A to B in the most efficient way. It picks me up if I speed. It picks me up if I go through the airport. AI has defeated the best human players at games of strategy such as chess and Go. But, we haven't gone from, the pocket calculator that I used in my school certificate maths examinations to artificial intelligence in one step. It's been a journey of decades. And I think it does prove very perfectly William Gibson's assertion that the future has already arrived. It's just not evenly distributed yet. So, AI will transform everything. But haven't we heard these claims before? A lot. Data's the new oil. The web's the printing press. Blockchain's going to be the new trust. Crypto's going to be the new money and fiat currency. NFT's going to be the new crypto. And then AI is the new electricity. No, AI will transform everything. And so it kind of got me thinking about it, and actually a little bit worried. It's like, I've been living with AI, but what do I really understand, especially the newfangled stuff that we're all learning about? So I thought I had better understand this better, and I better do more than just read the latest listener article on it. I better do more than just look at the GCDO's guidance and advice, which is excellent from their experts, and do more than just watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos, though there's some good things out there. I need to go back to my nerdy teenage computer science nerd self. I needed to be like Matt Damon on The Martian when he was stranded on Mars and he needed to science this. But I did not need to plant and grow potatoes in my own poop. That I did not need to do. Now, the only problem is that I went to Victoria University in the 80s, and I have a traditional computer science background. So it's all about these kinds of things, formalisms around algorithms, optimization, efficiency, provability, computability, old school AI. So when I was there, it was all about logic programming languages where we would try to record and encapsulate knowledge and facts in code and in databases, and then use deductive logic in order to work out new facts. So I'm all good with algorithms. I love algorithms. I love the fact that they are a white box. I can look inside them. I can express them in code. I've spent some of my best hours in my life debugging algorithms and making them work again. I love it. But this stuff, neural networks, fuzziness, machine learning, deep learning, it was kind of like all new to me. This was pretty close to magic. And that's okay, I figured, because Arthur C. Clarke, writer of 2001, said any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And yes, it was. But the only thing that should be magic is friendship.
My little pony, what is friendship all about? My little pony, friendship is magic.
I did that for Mick. He said, I'm not too sure if you can put My Little Pony into your toys. I can find My Little Pony. Anyway, so I've been doing a little bit of book learning, some great books about the history, the formalism, and mathematics, and especially the machine learning algorithms behind sort of neural networks. But there's only so much of that I can do, and I'm only looking for enough intuitive understanding. And when you read about bounding an input space with a convex polytope, that's the intersection of hyperplanes in high-dimensional space, mine gets a bit blown. The kind of key intuition that I needed was to understand how machine learning would find the signal in the noise, and that machine learning really allows neural networks to be universal function approximators. And that's good, because I was never comfortable with this notion that a human brain could be turned into an artificial neural network just by software. And after I've learned all the stuff around the algorithms and the formal stuff around machine learning, you start to understand, I guess, a different model. And for me, if I think about a function approximator, then I think that a neural network is more like a mixer board. A mixer board that, yes, it does take inputs, but it's got an architecture, it's got the weights and biases that are in the little tuning knobs, and it's used machine learning in order to work out the values of all those knobs. And these neural networks have a lot of knobs, a lot. And I can understand that to process an inference, to take an input and produce an output or predict an output, it can just be a function that's going through many layers of multiplication and addition, which is what requires a lot of processing power. And then to actually tune the values of each of those knobs, it's a backward pass using backpropagation and gradient descent. But we don't need to know all that. We just need to know that we've got a mixer board. And then therefore, I can think of AI really as just about big knobs, although I'm told models is probably the more polite way to say it, probably about 2 billion parameters. It's about big data. We've been hearing about that forever, the data that is used to train through machine learning these neural networks so they can see the signal and the noise, so that they can approximate the function that's in the data. And of course, the big iron, the compute power that's used to train them, and then that's used at inference time. And in the end, going through all that stuff over months, I guess I did learn how to just stop worrying and just to love artificial intelligence. But I've then thought about it. I was already in love with AI because I've been growing up on a constant diet of popular media, film, books, TV. That's all been about this idea of artificial machine intelligence. Also sentience, the stories that I guess are about the hopes, the dreams, some of the aspirations that we have as humans about how we might use AI in the future to help us. But also, I think about some of our darkest, coldest fears about what AI might do against us. What I've thought about in totality, though, is that AI absolutely has a grasp on us as humans. But surely if you're a bit of an aficionado of artificial intelligence, the genre, you're probably going, Richard, you're hiding a few things from us. You're right, because I've just introduced my own bias into this. Because I haven't talked about some of the classic films like Colossus, the Forbin Project, where an American artificial intelligence falls in love with a Soviet artificial intelligence and they take over the world. I haven't shared some of the more whimsical, childlike stories about AI, nor the really bad ones. I do not know what Keanu Reeves was thinking about when he did Replica, but he made up for it in John Wick. And I haven't really introduced many of the ones about companions. And I certainly haven't talked about the absolutely batshit, sorry my language, Babiti Dobijecie Plesne, which is a 1984 Czechoslovakian horror comedy about cybernetic grandmothers. I encourage you to watch some of that on YouTube. You can find it. It wasn't subtitled, so I didn't really understand it, but I got the gist. And apparently the title means, roughly, grandmothers charge well. Anyway, why wouldn't you? So yeah, this is my bias which exists in algorithms, bias which exists in data. Because actually, if you go to IMDb, there's actually about 213 different films about AI, way too many that I could show there. But I want to prove that I'm trying to be more inclusive and trying to be fair. So I took the 197 sorted films so that I could present to you today. Now, getting a list of the 197 films into a data set was probably not the best use of my spare time, but it's considerably better than when I created a data set of Steven Seagal's filmology, which, speak to me later if you want that. So the 197 films, I also wanted to do some data analysis. What could I learn from this? And so I asked AI, because I use a large language model, to help me score every film. A 1 if it was about bad AI, 3 if it's neutral, 5 if it's good. I did a bit of a test. So 2001: A Space Odyssey, HAL 9000 directly kills crew to preserve mission. That's a 1. Blade Runner, AI replicants have mixed morality. Some protect humans, others act independently. Yeah, that's kind of neutral. And then Terminator 2, Judgment Day, not the Terminator. Reprogrammed AI protects humans, benevolent, definitely a 5. So I did my testing of the sample data. So we're looking at good versus bad AI. 22% of them were good. So, Wally's in that space. 27% of them are in the bad space. But that fully leaves, I think really importantly, half who are Ryan Gosling. Morally ambiguous, a little bit neutral. But those films, they tell us a lot about how we look into our souls and how we worry about what artificial intelligence can do, not just for us, but to us, with little things like making mistakes and errors. So when the robot grandmother doesn't vacuum under the furniture, that's a mistake and error, we could live with that. All the way to wiping out and enslaving humanity. We're not good with that. And when I sort of had to think about I guess the totality of the sorts of stories, especially ones where bad AI is there, it's really a classic example of the AI value alignment problem, where AI values are not consistent with human values. We saw it in 2001 when HAL 9000 just wanted to do his job, but he was told to withhold secret information from his crew members, and that led him to go a little bit crazy, and they had a bad day at work. And then in war games, when the AI just wants to play a game, but the teenage hacker wants to play global nuclear war, thermonuclear war, which ends up in starting World War III. So yeah, AI alignment values, AI values, human values. I actually would probably distill it down just in terms of bad parenting and user error. But technology's always had this problem, and AI is no different than that. In a talk that Stephen Fry gave last year, which I read the transcript of, he talked about the abuse and misuse by the 3 Cs, the 3 things he worried about the most: criminals or crooks, corporations and companies, countries and nation states. And I'm totally in agreement there. I'm worried about the bad actors, not about the AI itself. I'm not worried about AI existential threat and the rise of Skynet, but I'm damn well worried about cyberdyne systems. Because I want to see AI as just a tool and a technology, a really useful, helpful one. But equally, with any powerful tool, I want to know who made it, I want to know who's using it, and I want to know what they're using it for. If it's developed by these computer scientists, who I have a high level of regard for because I seem to understand what they believe, what they're aiming for, I'm all good. If it's these jokers, I may be a little bit more concerned. I'm just as concerned by these guys. And I'm definitely concerned if AI is ever used by an authoritarian state. What are they using it for? Perhaps I'd be very much less concerned if AI expressed the creators or the personalities, the loyalty of Rainbow Dash, the generosity of Rarity, or the deep empathy and kindness of Fluttershy. It's going to be important because as AI, especially generative AI, starts to infuse and imbue the values of humans, of creators, of us, then we get hit by something called the Eliza effect. You remember Eliza? So the Eliza effect is a real thing. It is the tendency of humans to project onto computers this idea of experience, of some form of comprehension, of empathy, onto rudimentary computer programs having a textual interface. Ooh, what are computer programs having a textual interface? What might they be? They might be these sorts of things, like Google Gemini or ChatGPT. You pick your poison. Large language models, which are the current hotness, are exactly those types of programs that use textual interfaces that speak to us in language. That's exactly why these jokers are going crazy at the moment, investing heavily, and why we're hearing about AI having its moment. But the more we learn about large language models, and especially as we understand some of the formalisms, like these chatbots are really just Dory to me. I said I'd bring this back. They don't really remember. They don't have long-term episodic memory. It's all parametric. They don't actually have a world model that understands causation with physics. And they just certainly don't have values the way we think about them. And they don't really learn unless they're trained. So they don't learn every time we use them. And yet, despite being a very, very clever auto-regressive next token or word predictor over a probability distribution on a constrained vocabulary, which is really, really clever, they're not that smart. And yet we're being fooled by the magic, and people are falling into psychosis with them. Even some very clever people who should probably know better. Because AI will transform everything, including, I think, our relationship with that technology. And I don't know if I can blame people for that, because I've been fooled by those things as well. I mean, I have Grok gets no love from me. I have a car. I gave my car a name, but my car doesn't speak back to me yet. Anyway, it's foolish to think that cars can have any kind of personality or spirit. I have a cat that I speak to all the time. She has a name. She speaks to me, not in English. But we have that interaction, because it's only natural that we anthropomorphize on other things. It's a natural part of the human condition. We have parasocial relationships with our favourite K-pop band. So why would we not have pseudo-intimate relationships with AI in our pocket? Of course, everyone knows that Red Velvet's the best K-pop band. Anyway, so these large language models, I think, are more than just stochastic parrots. I actually think they're stochastic mirrors that are reflecting back to us our deepest hopes and dreams and fears and our personalities. So if AI will transform everything, the thing I worry about the most is that I didn't hear it. AI will transform everything, but especially trust in each other and in technology. And as we know, trust is probably the most precious property and resource of our relationships that we have with each other. They take a lifetime to build, a moment to break, and even more time to repair. What if we created the approximation function with the public services input, AI as the weights? Would we end up with good democracy? I don't know. And what happens when we start to interact with citizens, like we were hearing before, using our AI that is then fallen in love with by citizens? So I don't know. When it comes to trust, I take Ronald Reagan's advice. I trust, but I verify. So almost at the end here, folks. AI will transform content. Everything that we generate, all the information will be transformed. And I think the most powerful antidote to just content is context. Because context is everything. It gives us meaning. It's the semantic environment in which things happen. It's the reality. It's the values, and it's the feelings of us all. But that context is the thing that's going to let us make those decisions about when is it appropriate to use artificial intelligence and when is it not. In New Zealand and our public service, our context is very particular. If you go upstairs to He Tohu, you're going to see some of our context. This is not just the context for a public service or for government. It's a context for all of New Zealand. It sets out the hopes and dreams of this nation. It sets also up the fears that were held. It's about relationships and trusts that were broken, some of them that are being repaired. But it's very much the context that we should be thinking about when we're delivering AI. So I'm just going to finish on this little thing I've used previously. I want to talk about, very, very quickly, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's from a story tale that was then turned into a film, and The Sorcerer's Apprentice is copyright of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. I mean, Walt Disney, pretty much the same. And in The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mickey is a hapless apprentice of the sorcerer, has to do a lot of work in the Sorcerer's Apprentice house. Sorcerer goes away, so Mickey takes his hat and decides to use the power of the magic that he's learned, his spells, to make his trusty tool, his trusty technology tool, his broom, start to do the work for him. And it's fantastic. It's incredible what this tool will do. Moving lots of water from one place to the other. Mickey accidentally creates a multiplicity of the tools that go a bit crazy. Mickey has a bit of a nap. He wakes up. And oh my goodness, what an unholy mess has been created. That is obviously a precautionary tale. I won't overplay that. But I want you to think about, in terms of your use as a public servant, if you're in there or even if you're in a business, your use of AI personally and professionally. Don't be Mickey Mouse. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have time for, I think, a quick question, which I will dream up myself. First of all, a couple of things. Greatest day of my life, because I remember seeing Eliza as a kid, using the Michigan terminal system at the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which was a Unix interface that you could access from various places on campus, and I saw Eliza, and I spent hours on it.
You spent hours?
I did. I literally spent, because every time you put in a swear word, it comes back with something funny. It's just, you put in anything, any four-letter word, and it comes back to you in an innocent way. I just loved it to pieces.
Yeah, you were easily fooled by Eliza.
No, it's more like, little boys poking things. Yeah. Anyway, so love that. Love the inclusion of My Little Pony. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Best show made in the last 15 years. Rewatching it now. But one of the things that someone asked on Slido, and I thought I would reiterate this, is we're both big fans of the Star Treks. Yeah. And the great thing about the Star Treks is that it seems to be this beautiful world where many of the problems that we're faced with nowadays have been cleaned up. We're often spaced in these preternaturally clean environments where there's no paperwork at all, and things are just happening with it. There's no money. Somehow they got rid of money.
Yeah.
What do you think they did in Star Trek with artificial intelligence to get it to that beautiful point where they can just sail through the galaxy without having to worry about, is AI going to take over the world? Without being, they're not drowning in Mickey Mouse's water, right?
You clearly didn't watch Star Trek Discovery Season 2? And pretty much a whole bunch of other episodes where... Did you watch Star Trek The Motion Picture? V'ger?
Well, yeah, that's what I was hoping you'd mention V'ger,
yeah,
but it's not for me, Richard. It's for the audience.
Okay. Yeah, sorry,
I know, they don't know.
That was being very nerdy. Well, I don't think they did, right? I mean, there were plenty of cases where... people got crazy, and they had mad scientists and mad inventors and creators who went a bit too far, and their values and their ethics, their leadership was poor, and they probably didn't have the right governance frameworks. They should look at the GCDO's advice on that. It's a thing. Again, it's a technology, it's a tool, so you can use and misuse and abuse it. Corporations, crooks, and countries. So yeah, I think Star Trek was, and like all that all that sci-fi stuff they're good precautionary tales, and because they express I think our deepest fears that we have, but also our greatest hopes, our greatest dreams. That's why I think Star Trek's great. Yeah.
The Data is our greatest hope, and his brother would be our greatest fear.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know where that puts Lore.
No.
No, what's his daughter's name?
I've forgotten.
What's his daughter's name?
Sandy Marshall.
Right.
Anyway, thank you, Richard.
Okay.